Can you move my phone?
Prabhu, one more sabji left. Hold on.
All right.
Fill my goblet and keep it filled.
Forgive us, Master, but our pitchers have run dry.
Then bring more pitchers.
There are no more.
What?
You will bring them. Namaste. I just want to say, don't these people, if this is the people who are so devoted to Swami Radhanath, who I also am finding I love, who I've just been introduced to, you can tell by the sweetness of the hearts and of the devotion, the sweetness of Maharaj Ji. So I feel very happy to be here. And I was asked to speak a little bit about Kirtan, but I think many of you have chanted. How many of you have chanted Kirtan before? Okay. And just a few haven't. But the point of Kirtan is, it's really a way of chanting divine names, chanting, basically singing your prayers. And the vibration of Kirtan, of course, allows the mind to rest, the heart to open. And so tonight we're going to have such a wonderful opportunity to hear Gauravani, who I heard last night chanting. And I must say this morning I was still hearing so pleasantly in my heart. And Gauravani has been chanting and grew up in the Krishna temples and has been chanting the Maha Mantra Hare Rama Hare Krishna mantra since he was just a baby. And you can see it just beam out of his face. So tonight as they chant, I would say, chant as children, chant with your hearts wide open and enjoy this incredible chanter who's really
grateful and honored I am to be here. Everyone has been so wonderful to me, and it was my extreme honor to meet Swami. I really was looking forward to this moment. When I first met Vidya, she came to the conference. I put on with our board member, we put on a Northwest Writers Conference, and we're all about writers and books, and we have non-genre, so we have mysteries and romances, but we don't have anything like this. This is a very, very special book, and I told Vidya that I was going to look forward to reading it after the conference, and I actually have started it. It is actually one of those books, and for all of you who have either read it or have it in your possession, that have you ever had this experience that when you start reading a book, you get so involved in it that you actually want to slow down because you don't want it to end? Well, this is that book. And I'm just in slow motion now because I'm going, oh no, and I just found out some very good news that you have another book coming out. So... And the style of this book is such that you actually feel like you know this person. And I was really taken with that because I read a lot of books in what because I also teach, as they mentioned. So I read a lot of pupils' works. And this really, the freshness of this voice really struck me, and how I just became really involved in the world and started really loving the little boy and wanting to know more about him. And So I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to be here and share that experience with you. And I hope everyone gets this book and also does what I do and just read it very, very slowly toward the end and savor every word. And then your release is coming out this spring, I think. Wish it was December, actually. So thank you very much again for inviting me here. I feel extremely honored and very, very grateful that I could be a part of this amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next, may I invite Ajay and Boris to say a few words about Radhanath Swami. Please welcome Ajay and Boris.
Namaste. It's not often that I have the pleasure, of being adjusted, of introducing someone that really I only just met. In fact, I only met the Swami this evening. So many of you know the Swami much better than I do. And yet, at the same time, I feel like I know him so well. And I must say this, that it's been a great blessing to get to know the Swami. About a month ago, I was given a book, an extraordinary book, the Journey Home Autobiography of an American Swami. And through a local organizer, Namita, arranged to interview the Swami on my radio show, Mind Matters. That's on KKNW. And because I interview authors every week, I get a lot of books. Most of them I just skim, never really read. So, like all the other books I get, I set this book on my desk, on a big pile of other books. Sad but true. Sorry, son. But, so there it sat until just a few days before the interview. And then one night, some new discovery. But it was extraordinary for the innocence of the author's heart. It was extraordinary for his one-pointed devotion to realizing life's highest truth. It wasn't a new story, it was rather a very ancient and eternal story. It was the story that was so familiar to me. It was the innermost story of my own heart, and I'm sure the innermost story of your heart. It was the story of the thirst that we all have somewhere inside of us to come home, to rest in the divine. And not only that, but it was a story told with such innocence, sweetness, poetry, humility, that it quenches that thirst. For in it you can feel the presence of God. So I honestly could not put down this book until I had finished it. And not only did I finish it, but this past weekend I brought it on vacation with me, and my adult daughters and I, we read it to each other with great excitement. And it gave such a beautiful quality to our vacation. Much better than watching videos. And now, in fact, they have the book. They won't give it back to me. In fact, my daughter went up and had the Swami sign it, and he signed it over to her. So I had to get another one. So in the scriptures, we find stories of great souls who find in every experience a lesson. Everyone they meet, every situation they find themselves in, they find that to be a teacher, an instrument of God's grace to open them and ripen them towards enlightenment.
वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Very grateful for this opportunity to be with all of you this evening. Thank you all for being with us. Special thanks to Hari Vilasji, who is the leader of the Vedic Cultural Center and who made so many arrangements for us to be together this evening. And to our very distinguished guests who spoke so gracious and kind, and to all of you. Life is a journey because everyone is looking for pleasure. Everyone is looking for a meaning and a fulfillment. And that is something we all have in common. Whether we are male or female, black or white or red or yellow, whether we're from the east or the west, young or old, whether we're humans or animals or fish or insects, everyone is looking for pleasure. Why is it that we all have that instinctive quality in common? The Bhagavad Gita explains, wherever there is consciousness or life, that is the symptom of the presence of the Atma, or the living force, which is dynamic. It is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. That is who we are. The ego is that idea that separates us from our own essence, our own source, and causes us to identify with the external, superficial coverings of the Atma that are always changing. But whatever the covering may be, whoever we are, we're all seeking pleasure. And what what is the essence of pleasure? Love. Even if you have everything, if you do not have the opportunity to express the propensity to love and to receive love, nothing really touches our heart. We can find satisfaction for our senses and our mind, but only love touches the heart. The real journey of life, in different ways, is trying to find that love. There's a beautiful analogy that I learned in the Himalayas about the musk deer. Have any of you ever smelled musk? It's something like an organ within the body of a particular type of deer. It smells so fragrant. I know somebody in Bombay, he has this musk, it's a little furry thing that he keeps in his closet. And if he opens the closet, within seconds, the entire house is filled with this fragrance. It's intoxicating. So this musk deer is smelling the fragrance and spends whole life searching for it because he wants to enjoy it. Searches behind the trees and the bushes. He goes from plant to plant, forest to forest, not knowing that it's within himself. It's the story of human society. We're all looking for the pleasure of expressing our need, our propensity to love and to experience love. But it is within us. Religion comes from the Latin word religio, which means to bind back. And yoga is a Sanskrit word which means to reunite. In essence, they mean the same thing. Whatever we call it, if we're attached to the superficial external appearances of things, it creates divisions and enmity, inevitably. But if we seek the essence, we'll find something universal that not only brings joy and fulfillment, but can unite us beyond all the external superficial differences that we have. I once saw a hawk flying over the river Ganges. And suddenly this hawk, his yellow glistening eyes gazing into the river, dove headlong. And slightly under the water there was a frantic skirmish, splashing. And he came out with a 1-foot-long fish in his talons. And that fish was flapping and flapping and flapping. The hawk went higher and higher and took the fish into the forest. I remember thinking, that fish, he was just going about his routine day, or her routine day, I really couldn't tell. Just like any other day. Absolutely no expectation that such a tragedy would come upon. But anything can happen to anyone in this world. But then I was thinking, if that fish was swimming deeper, the hawk could never reach it. And as long as we are living on a superficial level of life, identifying ourselves with what people think we are, with our bodily designations, with our mental states, they're always changing. Then stress, trauma, all these things can really affect us. Because this is a world of dualities. Like two sides of the same coin, you can't have the heads without the tails. There's happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, pleasure, pain, success, failure, health, disease. And so much is beyond our control. On the surface. But if we dive deeper into the essence of who we really are and who others really are in our relationship with the divine, then all these things happen. But we can remain composed. It cannot disturb our satisfaction or impair our compassion. The essence of every true spiritual path is to develop the character of real compassion. And real compassion comes from an inner feeling that we find within our own heart, a divine love that we want to share as instruments of change. I'm going to tell one short story from the journey home and then end. I was in the Himalayas, and I was walking north into the jungles. When suddenly I entered into a clearing that had me the worst poverty I had ever seen. Some people were naked, some in rags, some to keep cold from the Himalayan winter. They dug holes in the ground and buried themselves with dirt to sleep. And many of them, their faces were deformed. Their noses were shriveled from their bodies. They had no fingers or toes. And they all looked at me in total desperation. I accidentally, at least that's what I thought, I stumbled into a leprosy colony. Now, coming from the northern suburbs of Chicago, this was a culture shock for me. Especially when about 30 of the lepers, they either ran up to me or crawled up to me according to their capacity and made a tight circle so I couldn't move and stuck their bloody stubs in my face, crying out, "Bakshish, bakshish," which means give me charity. But honestly, I had nothing. All I had was the clothes I was wearing. But they didn't believe me. I didn't speak their language and they didn't speak mine. Bakshish, bakshish. I was terrified. Probably 20 minutes they were breathing on me and touching me and sticking my fingers in my face, my fingers. And I was thinking, from the movies I used to see when I was a child, leprosy is contagious. What's going to happen to me? Part of me was angry. Why are they doing this? I'm just an innocent passerby. And another part of me was thinking, the suffering that they're going through, they're justified to do anything. Finally, they patted me down and saw that I really had nothing and let me go. I walked a few steps and stopped in my tracks what I saw. Something that changed my life forever. May I tell you? To my left side, about the same distance as Ajayan and Pam, there was an old leper woman. She was just laying in the dirt on her left side. And she somehow or other sat up a little. Her face was deformed and shriveled, and she had no nose and no fingers. It was the most pathetic sight I've ever seen. And she looked at me in the eyes. Our eyes locked. It was a motherly affection that was so rare, so deep, and so real. I could feel in her someone, all that she wanted in life was someone to accept her passion, to give love, and to receive it. She offered her greetings to me like this, and then she offered me a blessing. That motherly affection literally conquered my heart and made me fearless. I ran up to her, got on my knees, and put my head under her hand as she blessed me. And in the Hindi language, with such emotion and a faltering voice of affection, she repeated again and again, "May God bless you, my child. May God bless you, my child." I looked up at her. She was smiling. Her face was effulgent. There were tears of joy flowing from her eyes. She was effulgent. I remember, as I was looking up at her, thinking, she's the most beautiful person I've ever seen. After some time, I thanked her, and she thanked me. And I wandered higher into the Himalayas and came to the river Ganges and sat on the bank. And I saw on the superficial surface of the river, there were waves and there were swirls and ripples and there were leaves floating and so many things. And I was thinking, what do I really see about this river? Deeper down, there's hundreds and thousands of fish and beautiful stones and underwater vegetation. And then my mind went back to that leper woman. That although externally she was diseased and ugly, beneath the surface, she was a beautiful soul who simply wanted someone to receive her love and give her love in return. We have a tendency to judge people, to judge circumstances, to judge things by how they appear. There's a Sanskrit word, saragrahi, which means one who seeks the essence of everyone and every situation. When we seek the essence, we can actually find that everything is potentially sacred. And everyone is potentially sacred. And the absolute truth or the divinity within ourselves has a relationship with that divine source of everything, or God, who is the ultimate source of all beauty, all charm, and all sweetness. And to connect with that and relate to that. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita that is one of my favorites. Vidyavanaya sampani brahmani kavihastini sunichaya svapake cha pandita samadarsha. What is the meaning of wisdom? The Gita tells it's not about having an MA or a bachelor's degree or PhD, although that could be very helpful. Real wisdom is the ability to see every living being with equal vision. Not just hypothetically or theoretically, but when we find that home within ourselves and understand our own spiritual essence and awaken that love within our hearts, we see wherever there's life is a spark of that same divine essence.
Sometimes when Ray is playing, I meditate on the idea that we should try to become an instrument.
Yeah.
from side to side. So you're dancing not just with each other, but you're also dancing with the Lord who is in your heart, and the Lord who is dancing on your I'd like to invite Radhanath Swami up to sing a little bit for all of us this evening, if that's all right.